Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Lifeboat. I am Tommy Scoville, and you are the crew. So, hope. Before I get rolling onto hope, we have apparently there's a girl on a boat, and I don't know what your, the screen name is, but her name is Elizabeth, and her father reached out to us, which happens every once in a while. You'll talk to a parent, and apparently Liz is 21 days sober. So if you're listening, congratulations. That's awesome. Can we get some ones in the comments section for Elizabeth? Because that's really amazing stuff. 21 days that is the start of something absolutely beautiful. And they all have to start that way, right? And boy, you would think that people would be really happy by that whole concept. But her father, whose name is Art, sent me an email this morning, and he wanted me to reach out to him. I'm not going to lie to you, people. I thought maybe he wanted to say thanks. But that's really not the way it went down. And this man obviously is an older gentleman, but he sent me an email, which would lead me to believe that he's somewhat computer literate. So if he's watching by some chance, that's good too. So when I picked up the phone, he said, my daughter apparently is trying to get sober through your group. And I said, okay. And she said, 3 weeks. No, I assume it's 21 days because it said 3 weeks, but it could have been a little longer than that. Who knows? But one way or the other, whether it's, 21 days, 19 days, 26 days, it's awesome. It really is. It's awesome. This has happened to me before, but not from a parent. His problem with us here on the boat is the disease concept. So he started yelling at me. He started talking to me really mean. I don't know that he raised his voice, but he was not particularly nice. And he said something about, I said, are you not happy that your daughter is 21 days sober? And he said, not if it means being brainwashed. And I said, tell me how we're brainwashing her, sir, please. He said, you're telling her it's a disease. How's that? And I wish that I had said this on the call, but I was kind of floored. But apparently he would rather his offspring continue to be addicted to a substance of choice than even if we were wrong and we're not, than believing that substance abuse disorders are a disease. Do a little research, sir. If you're watching, do a little research, because everyone on the planet has accepted this now. It is testable. It's verifiable. You get patient A, B, and C. One of them is a unrepentant drug user, but you send all three of them in wearing a suit and tie. They will put them in a machine and say, B, that's your guy. They can do a scan of the brain and tell you exactly who is an addict and who's not, which means we're born with this. Now we make choices. So, crew, your humble captain was literally beside himself, and I was almost speechless, which doesn't happen to me very often. I really was, and I tried to be pretty calm through the beginning of this call, but I was speechless, and yeah. So eventually, I think, if you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, if you remember when his friend called the principal, well, that was kind of how it went. I said, "You, sir, are an asshole." So I'm sorry. If it's your dad, I really am sorry. I'm not even joking. I really am sorry. However, that man's a trigger. Believe that. That man's a trigger. So, sometimes we need to get away from triggers for a year, 6 months, until you get some really, strong roots planted in the sobriety. And I have said many times on the channel, they say you can't choose your family, but you can. You can find people who will support you through the entire process. This man wanted me to know how many times he had paid for his daughter to try to get sober. Why that's important is really beyond me. It is. But like I said, he's an asshole. I would remove my left arm at the shoulder if my daughter was addicted to anything. And being one-armed would help her. I would remove my left arm at the shoulder. Or my right, and learn to write with my left hand. But I did say to the person, very often the drugs or the alcohol is just a symptom. It's not even really the issue. The issue is that the addicted person feels uncomfortable in their own skin. And very often, to stay sober for a long enough period of time, you have to figure out exactly what it is that you were trying to get away from. What were you using drugs to level out? Because you're uncomfortable about something. There's a reason that you're uncomfortable. You have to kind of diagnose what that reason is, and it makes sobriety considerably easier. I said, and it's a long and painful process, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say her problem is you. Because I've never seen a dad or heard a dad act like that in my life. To be unhappy that your kid is sober is absolutely terrifying. It's terrifying. I mean, do you hear yourself? And then he said, I don't know what kind of scat that you're selling. I said, actually, we're giving it away. You won't have to go into your pocket this time, Dad. I'm sorry. I really am. I mean, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm sorry if that's your dad, because it is really, really a tough situation. And I can understand why anyone who had that man as a father might have tried to either use drugs or alcohol to deal with how this individual treats the world, much less his family. And I do hope that your mom is a solid person. It would be really cool if you at least had one human, because he's not. You were looking at the wrong time zone. I've done that, Lemmy. Lemmy, I saw you. I saw a video you made. Very, very cool. I had never seen that before, but I just saw it, where you were doing some tank. Thank you very much. That was absolutely cool. It really was. It was beautiful. And I had not seen that, so it was really, really cool to see. You can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you cannot pick your friend's nose. It's true. It's absolutely true, Mark. And you can't pick your family. So if by some chance your birth family is one of the reasons that you use, and this, believe it or not, this happens more often than not. Very often something that happens to us as a kid, the way we're treated when we're young, starts us feeling a certain way about ourselves. But the important thing to realize is that it's a false paradigm. You could be the greatest human being that ever lived. But if you've got one parent or two parents that are doing everything within their power to make you feel bad about who you are, you're going to carry that into your 30s or 40s or 50s unless you can figure out a way to deal with it. And just like addiction, just like anything else, the first step, and whether this is your parents or whether this is an ex-wife or this, if there is somebody who has done something in your past, and that's the 5%. Now, if that happens to you at 20, then you can take that and say, all right, you do what you do, but here's how I'm going to respond to it. I'm not going to let this bother me because you're the sick man, right? Not me. I was born with this. You became this way. You choose to be this way. You're the sick bastard. That's the 95%. Of course, you can't do that if you're 5. That's a concept that really doesn't work if you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are parents who really, really do a number on kids for their entire youth. And so often those kids become addicts later in life. But it looks like this girl's found another family. And you don't have to put your name up. We don't know who you are, right? This is anonymous. It really is. No one knows who this guy is. I have a pretty good idea. I honestly don't know who his daughter is. I have no idea. But what we're slinging here, he doesn't know what we're selling. What we're selling here is hope. And it may be the greatest thing on the planet. It may be the only really great thing on this planet. In the absolute worst of situations. You can read so there's been some amazing literature over the years written by people whose situations, and I mean the 5%, the hand that they got dealt was so unbelievably awful. And yet they come out on the other side, not just surviving, thriving. They come out on the backside, a better version of themselves. And someone who throws a stone into the water that's the size of a truck, and the ripples that come off of that person's life will change lives all over the planet. You got a ripple going in England, you got a ripple going in China, you got a ripple going in the US from people reading something that you wrote while you were in hell on earth. Anytime you read those stories, and I've read a bunch of them, they're very popular in prison for obvious reasons. Parents who love their kids and feel bad that they're locked up, whether their kid is 19 or 60. People mail in books, and they're always something that tries to give the inmate hope. And when somebody is done reading that book, they put it on the book cart. So that book cart, about 50% of it is usually stories of people that endured the worst of the worst. Concentration camps, prisoner of war camps, torture in Vietnam. That honestly, I probably have read 30 or 40 of them. And we've talked about a couple of them on here before. Hope is the one thread that goes through every single one of those books. Everybody, no matter how bad they were being tortured, no matter how bad they were being beat, the person, if it's a third person book, if it's not, if it's something that somebody's interviewing them or whatever, and because that happens often, And the question becomes, how do you stay alive through that? How do you not go insane? And like they all went to some school for this, the answer is always that I never gave up hope. I never gave up hope that eventually I was going to be out of the situation that I was in. And that hope got me through the darkest of times. Boy, oh boy, I was really blessed with my dad. I really was. Like, I won the lottery with my parents. And there have been many times in my life I've taken that for granted, but not while I was sober. And boy, after this morning, wow. If I could do it all over again, I would have said the same thing to that guy, but I probably wouldn't have cursed. I didn't raise my voice, but I cursed about a half a dozen times, to be really honest. I just can't repeat the entire diatribe on here. We will most assuredly get demonetized. M. Hunt. Benzos took away any hope I had when I lost my family. Made recovery almost impossible. Almost being the key word. Almost. There are times, so often, with people who become addicted to any substance. There are times where they give up hope. And it may be the hope that someone else has, that that person can get sober. It may be that person just wanders into the right place at the right time, right? There's usually, I've said this so many times, but there's a miracle story in almost every recovery. Now, there are people who were super functional and didn't hurt anybody and didn't screw up their life, and rock bottom for them was when they, crashed their car, didn't remember doing it like that. Those stories abound because there are different levels of addiction and how far down the rabbit hole we go. But there are stories where the only person that still had hope was somebody's mother, or the only person that still had hope was the guy or girl at rehab. And that person would come in 9 times or 10 times. The people who work in places like that are amazing human beings. And they have a very, very high rate of taking their own lives. And their relapse rate is probably in the highest of any occupation. And the reason is they go home with that. It becomes difficult for people in that situation to sort of compartmentalize. And I get an email about once a week from someone who says that they're worried that that's going to happen to me here. One of the things that really makes this easier on the chair, right, on sitting here, is the fact that no matter how many of you I work with, I'm not looking at you. That really is a huge thing from this standpoint, from where I'm at. It's a huge thing. You can read the written word and it will evoke all kinds of emotion. When I read this email, all I was doing was reading words. And I wanted to punch this guy in the face about 15 times. I mean, it could definitely pull out emotions. Hunt, I love that. He said, my grandmother and I would play games for hours. She was my best friend, and I named my daughter after her. Man, that's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. By the way, I'm going to get 6 or 7 emails from people who say, you realize that what you did was going to make this worse for his daughter. And you know what? It might. It might. It really might. And I'm not saying I handle this correctly by any stretch of the imagination. It's the reason I'm sharing it. I didn't handle it well. I really didn't. But uh, in my defense, this man's an asshole. He really is. I mean, in my defense, this guy is really, really a douche. Uh, and I did finish it up by saying that if he ends up taking any of this out on his girl, that I'm going to go and visit him. And it's not just hollow. I would go visit this cat. Like, I'm ready. So I woke up this morning, and before I read the email from Father of the Year, I was letting Squirrel out and doing the things that I do, and letting Squirrel out into the garage so she can hunt mice. And I looked outside, and every single thing is covered in snow again. Everything is covered in snow again. Man, yesterday it was 50. I went outside, cleaned up the lawn. The weather report said we were done. This is the never-ending winter. Truthfully, it is the never-ending winter. Tim says, I don't think it will get worse because he doesn't care. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing, isn't it? And you know what? I may be way off the mark, because when you can't see somebody and you can only read their words and then you hear them speak, you get this vision in your head. And then people say things, you know how many times I sent that person to rehab? I just have a feeling the guy's got way more money than he does brains. And it also sounds like he loved that money more than he loved any human. You know what, Tim? That could be. Or he may be so obtuse that he doesn't even realize that he was the cause. In which case, I feel really good that I told him that. Maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope for him. I'm going to call the guy back. Yeah. Amont, I don't know that I did. I just think I could have done better. And I am going to call this person back. I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to spend a ton of time thinking about what I could have said. And I think truthfully, and if he's watching, he probably hung up by now because I'm insulting the hell out of him. But I think truthfully, this dude needs a 12-step program or some kind of group counseling. There are groups out there for parents who have come to the realization that they caused their kids to be addicts. There are plenty of them where you can go in there and go, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Those people, those groups are out there. And this cat needs to go to one, maybe 4 or 5 times a week for a few months, and to come to grips with what he's done. I spend so much time talking to my kids about drugs. I was gone for a long time, and when a dad is absent in a home, I realize this is not a popular subject with most of the world. But when a child doesn't have a dad there, it takes a toll. It absolutely takes a toll. So, I don't know. I want there to be a dialogue about that. I want my kids to be able to tell me I'm a piece of crap for going away or whatever, and they haven't gone that route yet. But boy, I'm willing to hear it. Calhoun knew me really well before I, became incarcerated. his sister didn't. But I don't know which one that means is going to be harder. M. Hunt says, all children deserve a parent. Not all parents deserve a child. Holy hell. I don't know how I have not heard that in my 50 plus years on this planet. But that is awesome. Wow. That's incredible. Because, boy, that's on the money, isn't it? All right. So I woke up this morning and the entire, like, the whole property is just blanketed in snow. And as far as the eye can see, it looks like the road has probably started to melt, but everything else is blanketed in snow. And I've got something going on right here that is just unbelievable. I've got the worst sinus. I woke up with just a thumping headache. I'll be really honest. My plan was I was probably not going to do this. I was going to come on this morning and say, I'm not sure that I can do this. And I had a different thumbnail and everything else worked out. And then I looked at my emails and this said, I would love for you to call me. And I thought, that's pretty cool. Maybe this will cheer me up. Because very often people are excited when anybody finds something. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. That's addicts say the most profound things, says Ultra Maga. Boy, there's a lot of truth to that, isn't there? There is a lot of truth to that. That really is. Yeah. And I've said before, very often addicts become really, really deep thinkers because they have to go down this road of they got to go down this road of self-discovery, that there are people in life who can go their entire time on this planet and never go down that road. There are people who could just coast through life and they have bad times but they never have to sort of peel the onion and try to figure out what makes them tick. We absolutely have to do that. We have to. There's no other option. We have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly why we're not like everybody else. And I think there are probably times where people don't even figure it out, but they figure out so much else along the way that it doesn't matter anymore. Self-discovery is huge. If you spend, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, trying to determine what made you into the person that you are and how you can do something to make yourself into someone new. I don't think there's anybody on the planet that doesn't need to do that at some point in their life, whether they've ever picked up a drink or a drug. It's one of the real problems with being, sober and going through life. How often do you think those people say, I really need to evaluate everything about who I am? I really need to evaluate how I treat the rest of the world. I got to try to figure out if this is the best version of me. What can I do in my routine to change to make myself the best version of me? And when those people are done with that, they become unrepentant hope dealers, right? Slinging hope. And whether, you go to a meeting once a month and just sort of pat the people on the back who are in that meeting or say, well done or whatever. Or if you come here and hang out, but if you're participating in any kind of rehabilitation and you're clean, you're just coming back to be a hope dealer. What's that say about us? Honest to God, what does that say about us? That is a very unusual thing, don't you think? If a person goes to a hospital and they say, I've got cancer, how often do you think once they get cured, they go down to the hospital to talk to other people who have cancer? I know it happens. It does. but I think we probably lead the world in terms of what percentage of people with our disease who get well make a point of trying to help anybody else with the disease. Our disease is fascinating. It's fascinating. If you got diagnosed with cancer, you would be at the oncology ward at the hospital within about an hour and a half, right? Doc, let's figure this out. Radiation, chemo, whatever it is. I want to attack this. I want to make every opportunity I can to beat this. I don't want to die. I want, what do we got to do? If you had HIV, it would be the exact same thing, right? You get down there and then you get online and read about every single drug out there and, how did Magic Johnson survive as long as he has? What is he on? What is he taking? What's the best cocktail of drugs to live as long as humanly possible with the best life you could, right? We have the only disease that if somebody says, hey, you have the disease of drug addiction, you got to leave and go do some drugs to cope with the fact that somebody just told you that. You got to get high so you can sit there and say, guy's an ass. There's nothing wrong with me. Guy's an ass. A drug addict. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Yeah, I party, but I got this under control. What other disease tells you that you don't have a disease? I mean, that's really it in a nutshell, isn't it? Addiction, by definition, is a habit that we do continuously, even though it really adversely affects our lives. And for the people that are really, really, really having a problem, it doesn't matter how bad it affects your life. You would think that one prison sentence where you go in, do your time, and then come out would be enough to make you really take a hard look at what the hell you're doing and never go near that substance again. No. You know how many times I've sat inside a prison and watched somebody that was putting on, their best yard clothes because they were about to walk out the door, giving away their radio, giving away their shoes, anything that they had in there. They got, letting them out at 9. At 8:50, they're shaking everybody's hands, doing the bro hug. And then right before they leave, they go, boy, you guys have a good day, man. I'm going to be in the spoon by noon. I've heard that expression out of people's mouths. I kid you not. 100 times. Gate at 8, spoon by noon. They're not even fooling themselves. Okay? I'm going to walk out that gate at 8 o'clock. And by noon, I will be shooting dope. Name a disease that could do that to a person. And somewhere, there's somebody that still has hope for them because they don't have it for themselves. If after doing a rip, after doing a sentence, to have the first thing that you want to do when you get out be to get high, you're sick. And you probably don't have a hell of a lot of hope left. I speak from authority. See, the first time I went to prison wasn't a big deal. It wasn't. I didn't go to the feds. I went to a state prison. And it was not a very serious crime in the eyes of the court. And they did like a double sentencing thing. So when you get sentenced, they say you got a 1 to 3. So what it really means is if you get your parole, you'll be out in a year. If you don't, you're going to end up doing 3. And when I got there, I was talking to the intake woman and she said, and you should try to take the drug program, because you obviously have a drug problem. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I was young and pretty stupid. And the woman said, and it knocks between 3 to 6 months off your sentence, depending on how well you do in the program. I said, huh? You get out 6 months earlier? She said, well, it brings the 3 number down to 2.5. And I said, I'm confused. I don't understand this. And she said, well, if you get parole, you'll be out in a year. But if you don't get parole, you're probably going to do 3. So if you had done the drug program, you wouldn't be doing 3, you'd be doing 2.5. And I said, how much time can you get knocked off your sentence? And she said, well, you'd be limited by how many programs you could take. I'm like, I don't get it. Why would I be limited? Because they're all scheduled at the same time. No, but the amount of work you'd have to do. I'm like, don't trip. I got this. And then I went around, and in a state joint, the inmates kind of run everything, right? So the people doing the paperwork and everything else are all inmates, usually lifers. So if you go up to one of them and go, hey, man, I'll give you 2 jars of Folgers coffee. I need my name on the list for the next. I don't want to wait on, don't put me on a waiting list. It's going to take me 6-9 months to get into this program. I want to know this program now. What's it going to cost to get me into this program now? And then there was 1 or 2 guys that just said, tell you what, you make that 5 jars of Folgers, and I'll just sign the certificate that says you did the program. Bingo. So I turned a 36-month sentence into a 13-month sentence. For real. I took every single thing you could take. I took stuff that had nothing to do with my sentence. Anger management, nothing to do with my sentence, but knock 45 days off. Oh, trust and believe I'm taking that. So, and I was going to a prison where I knew about 50 people in that place. When I walked in, I knew them from the streets. It just was way different. And it was a new experience. You have this thing in your head about what prison is going to be like because you've seen all these movies. So you think it's going to be bars and then you get in there and it's nothing like you expect. And everybody's sort of laughing and clowning and a bunch of people all know each other. Hey, I'm back. So I walked out that gate. I went and had lunch, and then I drove to the hood and I bought a bag of heroin. Just one. I wasn't going to get strung out again. See, I had the benefit of 13 months off. So this time I had it together. I was going to do this stuff 3 days a week. I would never do it more than 3 days a week. So I got out on a Friday, and I did it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I didn't do it on Monday. I didn't even do it on Tuesday. And then I did it Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then I didn't do it on Saturday, and I didn't do it on Sunday. And then I did it every other day until I was back in prison. The only disease out there that tells you don't have a disease. The only disease out there that makes you believe you can cure it without anybody else's help, or that you can control it without anybody else's help. It's a disease that will tell you that anybody trying to get you help is an ass when you're the ass. And the most amazing thing is that if you can get through it, then every single thing that you were trying to get from drugs, you'll get from sobriety. Just wanting to feel comfortable in your own skin, wanting to be able to go to sleep at night, without having to sit and think about who you are or what you are. To be able to be productive, to go get a job. There was a time in my life where if I was going to go to work, I needed a fat shot of heroin before I could do it. There's no 2 ways about it. That was essential. And if I wanted to sleep, I needed to fix right before I went to bed, or I wasn't going to be able to get to sleep. So all of the things that sobriety gives me now, like being comfortable in my own skin, being willing to talk about my addiction without having to get wasted to do it, it's very odd. It really is, this disease we have. It's peculiar as hell. And you know what's even crazier? We sit here while we're on it and we say, we don't have a disease. And then if you've got a kid who's doing dope, right? Parents always say, where did I go wrong? What did I do as a parent to cause this to happen, right? This is something that every single parent does at some time or another. And then you give them a get out of jail free card. Maybe it's not your fault. This is a disease. Maybe your kid started getting high for some other reason. And then the addiction they had that gene. And what's insane is The parents will then say, no, it's not a disease. So you mean your kid's just a piece of shit with weak morals? Is that what you're saying? Your kid's worthless, right? Just somebody that you throw money at. Whew. Really staggers the imagination. It really does. You got to wonder how bad he got jacked up as a child to do this to other people. I don't know if this girl's got any siblings, but God be with them if they do. Good Lord. It is my fault. Everything that I did in addiction is my fault. The fact that I have a disease does not cure me of that. You understand? It's my fault. But I wasn't in my right mind. I don't know why so many people have a difficult time with this concept. Those two things can live together. I come here every day and I talk about how repulsive a human being I was. You would think maybe I'd walk away and feel awful afterwards, but I don't. Nobody in their right mind robs banks. Nobody in their right mind puts needles in their arms every day just to feel normal. Nobody in their right mind does that. Nobody in their right mind does anything that we do as addicts. Drink 5 bottles of wine, right? Drink a 5th of bourbon a day. Who in their right mind does that? So we make choices that turns on the light switch that's our disease. If you never throw that switch, well, then you're never going to go down that road. Or if you get high once and manage to walk away, doesn't always happen with people who are addicts. But you found the way to feel comfortable in your own skin. And for that, the world's going to tell you you're weak. They're going to tell you that morally you're defective, that you're not as good as everybody else. They're wrong. They're wrong. Addicts say amazing things because they're deep thinkers and they're the kindest people you will ever meet. Less judgmental than anybody on the planet. And when their disease gets treated to the point where they don't need to come to places like this anymore, they come to places like this anyway to try to help people who are still trapped. Our disease sucks, but our recovery is beautiful. It really is. It really is. Because the miracle of recovery doesn't just get somebody to stop using. It gets somebody to realize who the hell they are and who other people are who are trapped in the same go-around. We've used so many illustrations for this, right? So many. You found your way out of the forest, and now you go back to see if there's anybody else in there, right? Whatever illustration you want to use in your mind. Forrest Gump running back in there to grab one more person and carry him out. Pretty wild disease. It really is. And as crazy as it sounds, people, whether you believe this or not, I no longer play that, man, I wish I had never, had this. I think I was supposed to have this. I really do. I think that I was supposed to have this. I do. I think I was supposed to be a drug addict. I think I was supposed to go through all of the things that I went through. I think that was just what was supposed to happen. Maybe for no other reason than to tell this guy's daughter that he's wrong, that you're a absolutely beautiful creation, and that your life can be damn near perfect. No life is perfect, but it'll be really close. You will feel comfortable in your own skin without using any substances. Will you need a tune-up? You betcha. Sometimes once a day. You'll have to look under the hood, figure out what the hell you're doing wrong, and grab something for a little bit of a tune-up. It's a strange, strange disease. And sometimes the only thing stranger than our disease are the people around our disease. For real. Yeah, what a morning. Well, people, I'm going to call it early and I'm going to go see if I can do something about this. But I really wasn't going to do this at all. And I made it almost 50 minutes, so I feel a little less guilty. Man, I am really just packed up. I'm hoping that but by this evening, I'm going to feel great. Sorry, a couple of really great comments, man. Addicts say some really amazing things. They really do. And today I can almost see them all. Yeah. All right, peeps. I'm going to go get my poor kitty cat out of the garage because she's just done 45 minutes of mouse hunting. See if I can't talk her back into going to bed for an hour without destroying the house. All righty, peeps. I'm going to go watch the sun come up and then fix my beak. God bless. I'm Tommy Scoville, and we will see you in 11 hours. Bye-bye, crew. Make it a great day. Why does my key not turn that off? Isn't it supposed to? Come on now. Oh, well. It used to.